back to my channel. Hope you're all doing well out there. I just got home from seeing the Christopher Nolan movie Oppenheimer, just dropped on Friday. I just walked home. It took me about 15 minutes to get home. Gave me some time to reflect on what I had just seen. So this is kind of like an out of the theater reaction, only after I get home. I have no notes. I'm going right off of memory out of the theater. So let's get into it. Before we go any further, do me a favor, like, comment, and subscribe. Join me here, I would appreciate that. Now, Nolan wrote, produced, and directed this film, and he based it on American Prometheus, about the life of Robert J. Oppenheimer. And this is definitely Cillian Murphy's movie because he plays Oppenheimer, and this is definitely Oppenheimer's movie, but there's a ton of characters, a ton of dialogue. There's a lot of stuff that takes place here. Now, like I said, we got Cillian Murphy as Oppenheimer. We have a stacked cast here. Every time it cuts to a different scene, there's somebody, a new face that you definitely will know. You can just tell people want to work with Nolan, and they'll line up and just do the smallest role, because there's big actors doing the smallest role in this film. Actors I didn't even know were in this film. But we definitely dive deep into Oppenheimer's life as an adult, through the Trinity Test, and even beyond the Trinity Test after the bombing of Nagasaki and Hiroshima, because we get some courtroom drama peppered in throughout, and especially the last hour is basically all kind of courtroom drama about Oppenheimer's loyalty to America. Is he tied to any communist organizations? And definitely in the first hour, Nolan sets that up. The first hour, even though this movie is very talk heavy, I mean, it's mostly dialogue driven, performance driven, there's not a lot of action. But in the first hour, Nolan sets up a lot. Oppenheimer's ties to the Communist Party in America. And we see him going to parties, although he's not buying in or joining, but he's definitely curious about it. And this definitely shows a man that's very curious about a lot of things, although theoretical physics is definitely the forefront of what he's into. We see him at college, not being very good at the lab, but definitely being very good at other things. We see his relationship with Florence Pugh's character, who's a member of the Communist Party. And then we see when he meets Emily Blunt's character, who goes on to be his wife through the remainder of the film. And Emily Blunt's great here as well. The whole cast, there's not one bad acting job in this film. Everybody came and gave it their absolute all, and you can tell that they just wanted to work with Nolan, and it shows on screen here for sure. And then we see when he gets approached by the government to go and head the Manhattan Project. Matt Damon's character comes and talks to him about heading up the Manhattan Project, which he does. We get to see Josh Hartnett, which just made me... I love Josh Hartnett as an actor, and I'm glad he's kind of getting a renaissance here, working with Guy Ritchie a few times. Now he's in this film. We need more Josh Hartnett in our lives, and I'm glad the man is back on the big screen. And we see them going to Los Alamos and building the town, and they're trying to figure out how to make the bomb, and they're worried the Nazis have it. And then we go through the time where we've already defeated the Nazis, but the government wants to go ahead with it and make the bomb because Japan is a threat after Pearl Harbor. We see them successfully. It builds up to the test of the Trinity Test, which Nolan, considering we all know how this goes, I was surprised how much tension and how on the edge of the seat I was for this sequence that goes on for a few minutes, and then the bomb goes off. And I gotta be honest, we all know it's been publicized out the ass that Nolan did everything in this film practically. There's no CGI. And we all know Nolan prides himself on using as little CGI as possible throughout his whole filmography. Even the bigger films like The Dark Knight Rises, yes, there's some CGI, but he prefers to do things practically. And he said in this film, there's not one shot of CGI. And when the explosion goes off, when they do the Trinity Test, it is, the best way to describe it, to me anyway, it was hauntingly and horrifyingly beautiful, because we all know what that test meant in history and what came after that. And we hear about us using the bomb in Hiroshima, and they have kind of like this powwow, and we see right after Oppenheimer gives his speech, it's kind of like a rah-rah speech, you know, as you would during a wartime, and we just had a very successful campaign against the Japanese. No matter how you may feel about it, it's, you know, we're trying to win the war. We did it. It was successful, what they created. So he gives his rah-rah speech, but right after it, you get to see, like, he's all in it. He wants to develop this bomb. He has his reservations about what future governments are going to do with it. And he even talks about trying to keep the genie on the bottle in terms of, you know, we got to talk to other countries and make sure this does not become the forefront of wars coming in the future, because this has the power to destroy us all. And we get that great scene with Kenneth Branagh, who's in this film. Not a lot, but he's in it. And he's worked with Nolan before, and he says to Oppenheimer, you've just given them the power to destroy themselves, which is very much true, unfortunately. And after, like I said, after we had those successful bombing campaigns in Japan, you could see Oppenheimer changing his tune. Like, he realized he's become death of the world because he's just giving us the most destructive and horrifying power the planet has ever known. And I love that duality, like when he flipped the switch. And then after the test and we get away from Los Alamos, it gets into more, I mean, we see the courtroom stuff early on and we keep cutting back and forth. Nolan definitely jumps around in timeline, which never bothered me at all. And then the last hour is a lot of courtroom stuff and hearing stuff about Oppenheimer. They want to make sure he's loyal to the USA. And that's and his ties to communism. It all comes up in these hearings. And we see the strain on his family. Emily Blunt gives a very understated but terrific performance. So let's get into positives. That's pretty much Oppenheimer. Let's get into positives. Well, the cast. Cillian Murphy, if he does not get nominated for an Oscar, it's a goddamn travesty. Totally upfront. If he doesn't, then the Academy Awards mean nothing anymore because the man deserves it. He absolutely is phenomenal. I couldn't take my eyes off him. The other person in this cast deserves an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor is Robert Downey Jr. And if he doesn't get nominated, then the Academy Awards doesn't mean anything and you should ignore him from now on. Because clearly, these two men give amazing performances and Robert Downey Jr. disappears into the role and probably has given us his very best acting performance I always enjoy his performances. But we got the MCU version of Robert Downey Jr., which he used a lot through the years. This gave him something else to chew on, and he definitely brought his A game, and he's phenomenal. I couldn't take my eyes off him. He was great in every scene, and a lot of his scenes are shot in black and white, which I love the black and white sequence. They were absolutely gorgeous. I did not get to see this in IMAX, but on my local Regal, and I can't imagine how loud this would be because we're getting into sound design, because it was loud in the theater I saw it in IMAX. I couldn't even imagine how loud this movie is. Just the thundering score and the sound effects, the sound design is amazing. Emily Blunt, she should get nominated for Best Supporting Actress. She is phenomenal here. Everybody brought their A game, and you can tell. Story-wise, I was glued to the screen, and I don't like hyperbole. When I see people throwing out this as Nolan's magnum opus, it makes me excited because I've been excited for this film since it got announced, and the trailer had me excited, but it makes me weary that people are overhyping it. And then I go into a film, and usually 9 times out of 10, when they overhype it like that, I'm usually not as big on it as they were. I've seen some negative reviews or middle-of-the-road reviews, like they realize it's a technical achievement, and technically it's brilliant, but they didn't care for the way the story was told or whatnot, or they thought it was too long. I gotta be honest, this movie blew me away. And Nolan, obviously as a technician of cinema, he is one of our very best working today. And it was a big deal. He shot the whole film in IMAX. They developed IMAX black and white films specifically for this film because Nolan wanted to film certain sequences in black and white. And thank God they did. The black and white sequences, I was just like loving every second of it. Technically, the movie is brilliant, as you would expect from a Nolan film. It's beautifully shot. Every shot looks perfect. Now, obviously, I'd have to see it again, but I was blown away by and usually Nolan does blow me away with what he puts on screen, the shot selection and whatnot. And here is no different. And I just, at a 3-hour runtime, I know some people are saying it's a little too long. I wanted more. I would have watched a 4-hour version of this film. I wanted more. I was never bored for 1 minute. And like I said, this is a lot of talking. It's a lot of people in rooms discussing theories and all this stuff. But Nolan, to me anyway, found a way to edit it, make it exciting, make it tension-filled, because you know what this means for the country, even though we know the outcome of it now. While I was in the theater watching it, I was on the edge of my seat. And leading up to the Trinity Test, I was glued to the screen. I was on the edge of my seat watching it, even though I know the outcome of this test and what happened after it. But he does it the way he edits, the sound design, the score is amazing. It all comes together, and what I would say is, because I have no negatives about this film, folks, none at all, I would say this is my favorite Christopher Nolan film, and that's off my first watch. And I love The Prestige, which I think is highly underrated in Christopher Nolan's filmography. I love that film. I love the Dark Knight trilogy. I love Memento. I love Inception. I loved Dunkirk. And honestly, this is the culmination of his talent and his career building to this point. Who else could make a 3-hour biopic, R-rated adult biopic? I just saw the box office results. It made $80 million over this weekend. It wasn't projected to make that much. And I know that's not a sign of quality, but to me, after seeing the film, I'm glad people showed up in droves to see it. My theater was packed. And it looks like it's going to be a big blockbuster hit for him, because overseas total, I think it's already up to $190 million. And I'm happy that it's making money, because we need more movies like this that are definitely built to see in the cinema. And I want to see it again. I'd actually like to go see it in IMAX, and maybe I will do that. I will say this word of warning about this film. I thought it was brilliant. I loved every moment of it. And I'm not one of these film snobs, but this is definitely a cinematic masterpiece, in my opinion. You may disagree with me if you see it. That's totally fine. We all have our different likes. I love films like this that can be really a lot of talking, but still make me riveted, and I'm just glued to the screen because I'm so interested in what's going on, and this film happened to capture that. And, we don't get a lot of movies like this. Christopher Nolan's one of the few filmmakers can get the kind of budget to make a film like this and put it out in the middle of the summer, where really this, for any other filmmaker, had no business being released in July. This would be Oscar bait later on. And I never felt like it was an Oscar bait movie. I didn't think it was pretentious at all. I thought it just told its story, set up the characters. Obviously, it was concentrating on Robert Oppenheimer. And then the surrounding cast just swirled around Cillian Murphy and helped him give a great performance. And it helps that he has those hauntingly blue, piercing blue eyes. And when he stares into the camera, because, again, they shot this all in IMAX, so they get the camera right up close. And his face is like taking up the whole screen. And I was just fascinated by this film. I really was. Now, a word of warning for some folks. This isn't going to be everybody's cup of tea. Like I said, there's a lot of talking here. There's not a lot of action. Now, Nolan does ranch up the tension. Even the courtroom scenes in the last hour, Nolan does a masterful job of making them exciting, very interesting, and I had no problem with it. But I can see some folks getting bored by that, and that doesn't mean anything other than this isn't made for everybody. It's a very talky film. There's not a lot of action. There's a lot of people just walking from room to room, just having theoretical conversations or talking about the politics of it. So if that doesn't sound like a good time for you, I would avoid it. Maybe catch it on home video. But if it sounds like a good time to you, I would highly recommend going to see this on the biggest screen possible, as Nolan intended. I didn't get to do that today, but I may be going back to see this in IMAX. At the end of the day, I don't throw this rating out very often, and usually it's reserved for classics. I have not given a newer movie, except for maybe David Fincher's Zodiac, this rating. I don't really give any newer movies this rating, and I love Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. I give that a very good review, very highly rated for me. I love John Wick 4 this year, but for me right now, this is the movie of the year. This is probably the movie of the last several years, and I give Oppenheimer a 10 out of 10. I loved it that much. I will buy this on 4K. I want to see it again on the big screen. 10 out of 10 for Oppenheimer. Have you seen it yet? Leave a comment down below. Let me know. Are you even interested in seeing it? Leave that comment down below as well. Do you plan on waiting for home video? Let me know as well. Hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, share this video. I would appreciate that. I'll be back soon with a review for Michael Bay's Transformers. Yeah, we're going in the opposite direction of this film. But until next time, bye.